fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Are you losing hope for the future of our country? Hey everybody, Joe Simons, Like Diamonds, back again, Salt Strong Unchurched. This is going to be a powerful and a hard-hitting one, something that has come up quite a few times. I've gotten a few emails about this. I recently went and started reading some of the comments on the video I posted about anxiety. For those of you that don't know, I suffered from almost daily, anxiety attacks. It's certainly daily anxiety, but sometimes it would be like every day I'd have an attack, or I'd wake up in the middle of the night or at work. And it was brutal. And it's something that really plagued me for well over a decade. And I've ruined relationships from it. And it had a hold on my life, I'll be honest. And there's many points that I just assume I have to live with it forever, and finally conquered it. I think with anxiety, if you have it that bad, I don't know that it ever just 100% goes away where you never, ever think about it. There'll be certain instances where it kind of boils up, but now I know how to defeat it pretty quickly. And that's what I shared in this video. It's called The 3 Secrets to Overcoming Anxiety Without Having to Use Drugs. And that video has hundreds of thousands of views now. And so every once in a while, I'll go just kind of check the comments and see if there's anything that stands out. And there was quite a few comments, and I received multiple emails with the same kind of question: is how can you still be positive and not be anxious with everything going on in our country? And I had an email here recently that was pretty hard hitting. It was from someone who found that video. At the very end of the video, I leave my email. It's like an hour-long video. It's like, hey, if you made it this far, I'll give you my private email, and I'd love to pray over you, help out. I've been there. I feel your pain. I know how you feel if you're dealing with this anxiety and feel like it'll never go away, that it's owning you. It just flat out stinks, and it happens to so many people, millions and millions of people. And if you haven't had an anxiety attack, it's tough to explain it, but it feels just like your heart is pumping and you're racing like away from like a jaguar or a puma or a lion chasing you through the jungle. Like something like if you had the worst nightmare, like you were running, sprinting, about to die. That's how your body is reacting. Even though in your head, you're smart enough to know there's nothing around you. It's complete just head play. And literally, your pupils start dilating, your heart's pumping, like you start sweating profusely. It is miserable. And this can happen anywhere. For me, it would happen a lot of times if I was just not moving. I needed to be moving, meaning if I was sitting in church, if I was standing in line at a grocery store, places like that where I almost kind of feel trapped. Even though nothing alarming was happening around me, my body would start saying it was, and my mind would start telling me it was, and I would just start freaking out. And from what I'm gauging here from these comments and these 2 different emails in particular that went really deep into this, is that a lot of people are starting to get these anxiety attacks and suffering from depression / anxiety, just thinking about the future of our country. And I'll be honest, I see it, right? Talk about. And if you watch the news at all, I think one of the things I'm going to advise you to do is stop watching the news. If you're absolutely like getting depressed and anxiety from all this. But if you watch anything in the news, or even just getting your news from social media, it is easy to get caught up in that. You got politicians who are flat out lying to us on both sides, right? You've got, all of our original rights, from, freedom of speech to freedom of what we believe. It's just feel like they're getting pulled in a million different directions, and no one seems to agree on anything. And if you're for, only having 2 sexes, male and female, you're bad. And, and then if you're not, you're good. Like the whole thing is just, it's crazy how we're going. And if you disagree with the other side, like a minority side, then all of a sudden you're horrible and you're the bad person. And there's just so much hate and not much unity out there anymore. And then you got high food prices. I mean, the inflation's going up. It's tough to buy anything right now if you're on any sort of a budget. It's wild. Even you just go into the grocery store. I mean, the simple things. It's it is. It could be scary for us. It could be scary for our kids, etc. So the question, anyhow, that kind of circle back is, how can you still be positive with all of this bad stuff everywhere you look? And it took me a while to respond to this one particular email because, I mean, it was a gentleman. I never share names or anything that anyone sends me, but it was very well thought out. And I mean, he just spent a whole paragraph listing every negative thing on there that you can't disagree with because it's all true. And I was like, well, man, honestly, I didn't think about a lot of that stuff. To me, it's easier for me to look at just more positive stuff, but clearly that's not the same for everyone. And one of the first examples that came to my mind that I ended up replying to him about was my brother Daniel. And if you don't know my brother Daniel, he was born with very severe cerebral palsy. And so he's never been able to walk. He's never been able to talk. He is 36 years old, never driven a car, never been on a date. He's never been able to even wipe his own butt or to feed. He can obviously feed himself once there's food there, but he obviously can't prep meals. I mean, he's literally confined to a wheelchair. Someone has to get him out of bed if he even wants to get out of bed every day. I mean, he is 100% reliant on other people, from my parents to us, to aides sometimes, to help him do anything. I mean, to bathe, to anything. And it would be tough to argue that that my brother Daniel, it would be really tough to argue this, that he couldn't have some excuse to say life is tough or life is bad, right? Compared to most of us, and maybe you're listening and maybe you're worse off than him, but for most people, it would be easy to look at him and say, yeah, my life is pretty good. I can actually, I can get out of bed. I can dress myself. I can brush my own teeth. I can go to the bathroom by myself. I don't need someone to, put an adult diaper on me every day. All the things that he has to live with day in and day out for 36 years. That's pretty tough. Yet, and why I'm telling you all this stuff, yet that dude, my brother Daniel, wakes up excited for life. He has got the just best disposition on life in general. He is floored in a good way, excited, jovial, just to be able to get up and have a breath. And so I spelled a lot of that out for you. And for him, this one gentleman who emailed me, and I was like, look through a different lens, essentially. I mean, think of all the amazing things in your life. And for my brother Daniel, it's the fact that he is alive, because every day he wakes up is one more day he's got to make an impact with someone and smile at someone and maybe meet a stranger. I mean, he loves doing that stuff. My brother is very grateful that someone does come get him out of bed. Otherwise, he would be stuck there. And so he looks at all these little small things that most of us take for granted because we're looking at the big picture things. And here's really what it came down to in my response to him and the other ones is, stop worrying about things that you can't control. Now, if you are a politician or the president of the country, then yeah, you have a little bit of control over some of these things, but still, even that, you don't have the control that we all probably think they do. But for most of us, the gas prices and the price of food and, politicians lying and, all this just nonsense that's happening in our world, it's out of our control. And at some point, we have to have a little bit of trust in God, which is why I'm talking about this on Unchurched. At some point, we have to have a little bit of faith. At some point, we have to realize that God is in control. And let's also be honest with ourselves that we're not the first generation to worry about the future of our country or to worry about our kids. I'd be willing to bet that if we went all the way back to the founding fathers, they had the same fears and stuff that we did. I don't think there's ever been a generation that didn't worry about the younger generation. So, oh, maybe these little young whippersnappers and they're going to screw the whole thing up. This has been a theme that's been happening over and over again. Go all the way back to the Bible and read the Bible. I mean, it was like every generation there, they were worried about what was happening and all the evil, and it was the same stuff. It was the politicians, and in some cases there's rulers and kings, and obviously there was a lot of religious battles back then. This has been an ongoing theme, and what it always comes back to is stop worrying about things that are completely out of your control. They shouldn't have that much of an influence on you. And that's how I look at it. Like all the stuff he was saying in his email and a couple of the comments, they were all true. I hadn't given him an ounce or an iota of my thoughts. I could care less if politicians are lying. How does that affect my happiness today? I'm asking you that, right? I asked him that, like literally, okay, politicians are lying. All these negative things are happening. How does that affect your happiness at your house or your job today? And most people can't answer anything besides, yeah, I guess it really doesn't if you look at it that way. And so knowing that, why don't we just choose to not worry about it and choose to only worry about the things that are in our control, right? The things that we absolutely 100% have some sort of say and some sort of control over. The one thing I can control, and the same thing I tell my kids, who blame, oh, well, they made me do this, or they're making me feel like they're the ones getting me angry. It's like, no. Only you can choose to be angry. No one can make you angry. They can push you towards that, but at some point you have to choose to be angry about what they did or how they made you feel. That is 100% up to you. And it's an interesting perspective because so many of us are just quick to blame. And I think society has taught us that, and lawyers have taught us that, oh, it's always someone else's fault. And they made us do this and they made us feel that way. And certainly there are some instances where that happens. But for the most part, in terms of our feelings and attitude, it comes back to us and our decision to either be happy, to be stressed, to be anxious, etc. And that was, one of the secrets of how I overcame anxiety. I chose to not worry about it, and at some point to trust in God, the same way everyone has done in the Bible and every one of these stories, that God will take care of it, and He will take care of you if you believe in Him, and just continue to do the right thing and focus once again on the things that are within your control, meaning the decisions you make, the attitude that you have, the small things that you're doing and small choices you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Also, get rid of the news. If you're in that bad of shape, and if you get that edgy, and if you get that riled up about all the negative things that are happening, then stop watching it. Don't give it any of your attention, which is what I do. Like I said, most of the stuff that person said, if I spent all day thinking about it, I would be depressed. I would be angry. I would be mad. I would be confused, but I don't give it any of my time. Why should I? I could care less what politicians are lying about. That literally does not affect me whatsoever. And some of you might say, oh, well, it should. You run a business. I could care less. It doesn't affect my community. Doesn't affect what I'm building at Saltstrong. Doesn't affect what I'm building with our family. It's not something we talk about at the dinner table. I could care less. I want to know, here's what I ask my kids. I'm not saying, hey, what do you guys think about, the news and what they're talking about here? No, we talk about, hey, what was some awesome that happened in your day? Start asking that same thing. One of the most fascinating books I ever read, it was two brothers that started the Life is Good brand. If you've ever seen the little T-shirts and their stickers on cars, it says just Life is Good. It's a $400 million brand that these two brothers started, and it all happened and they grew up super poor in Boston, and they would come home every day, and their mom would sit there at the table and just say, hey, tell me one thing that was great about your day. And it always kind of boiled back to, man, life is good. And it could be as simple as, man, my buddy gave me his extra cookie at lunch today. It's the small stuff, right? And if you do that every day, 365 days a year, all of a sudden, guess what? You're always thinking about the good stuff. And I've challenged my kids who had a problem doing it in the beginning. I was like, all right, you better be thinking throughout the day, be looking for something good that happens. So here's what happens when you shift your mindset from looking at the negatives and getting worried about that to saying, all right, I'm going to find one awesome, good, great thing that happened today. Now you start looking for good things that are happening. And now I can ask my kids and they can start rattling all these awesome things that happen. Whereas before, just like most of us, we get caught up in the bad stuff and we dread on the negativity stuff and the things that stress us out and get us anxious. Instead of doing that, focus on things that are awesome or even just good, great, slightly better, anything that's not negative. It is amazing how your attitude changes, how your day changes, how your relationships change. Everything changes when you just decide to look for the good in yourself and others in this country. And I'll tell you one thing, assuming you're American listening to this, there are so many other countries who would give anything, meaning the citizens of these other countries, to be here. I guarantee there's a lot of people in Ukraine and other countries who are, all constantly under attack in places like Africa and even, Israel. There are countries that are constantly under attack by others and are constantly being persecuted for either their beliefs or even what sex they are. Think about how lucky we are to be here. In a heartbeat, they would take our shoes over theirs. Can you imagine, instead of going around the dinner table talking about things that are good, you're worried about a bomb hitting your house, right? Or, you're feeling the whole house, the foundation shaking from a blast, or gunshots in your, in the street behind you. We are incredibly fortunate. So that's one small thing that we're, that we should be grateful for, and very, very fortunate to be here. And it just comes back to just focusing on the positives. And I'm telling you, as soon as I started doing that, and even as soon as I focused on the positives of anxiety, it all of a sudden started disarming my anxiety. And here's what I mean. I talked about this in the video. I actually started writing, and it wasn't my idea. Someone gave it to me, but I started writing kind of a gratitude journal, things that I was grateful for. I did it every day. And I still do it today, by the way. And I would start writing that I was grateful for my anxiety. And I'll be honest, I didn't believe it at first. But when you write something over and over again, if you start telling a story, or if you start repeating good things like my kids are having to do now, you start kind of believing it, and your whole mental attitude changes, and you start looking at things differently. And after doing that for quite some time, and I'm talking about like months, I did this, not just a couple of days. We all want the quick fix, but I just started doing this every day, that I am grateful for my anxiety. And in the back of my head, I didn't believe it, but I started believing it. And then I would start telling God, like, God, I am grateful for this anxiety. I know it's going to build me up into a stronger person, and I'm going to learn some really valuable things from this. And I did. And I've been able to impact a lot of people because of it. And once I started saying that, though, this is what was really interesting. All that anxiety slowly started going away. And anxiety is just like a bully. Bullies get fuel from seeing you run and hide. Bullies get their fuel and their power and their energy from being a bully and seeing the effects of them being a bully. When someone stands up to them and says, hey, I'm grateful for you, over and over again, and basically says, you're not bothering me, I know this is just going to make me better. At some point, that bully gets tired of you. Like, man, this isn't even fun anymore. They're just smiling the whole time. They're not even worried about me anymore. They want to go back and find someone they can mess with and really get their kicks out of seeing someone in terror and in fear. And so I'm just telling you, if you do struggle with anxiety, start doing that and don't give up. Like I said, it took me months of doing that every day. I have a notepad still somewhere where I wrote that every single day. I'd write it sometimes 15 times in a day, that I'm just grateful for my anxiety. God, I don't know why yet, but I'm grateful for my anxiety. I know this is going to be an awesome thing in my life. And I'm telling you, it eventually disarmed all that anxiety, and it had no power over me, just like none of these negative things in the news, et cetera, should. So I just wanted to share that. Anytime I hear something over and over again, I know that other people are struggling with that as well. And even this headline of the podcast, are losing hope for the future of our country. There's probably, if you just ask people on the street, there's probably a lot of people that would say yes. Step 2 is, is it causing you anxiety? And then there's going to be some people that say yes. So I'm hoping this reaches the right people. I know it will. I pray over that every single time before I go on these podcasts, that just God puts this message in the right people's minds, hands, et cetera, and it gets shared to the right people. And if you know someone who's struggling with that and really just gets wound up and or depressed or anxious about the news and what's happening in our world, let them know it's going to be okay. And if it's something they can't control, then put it in God's hands. You got to have some trust in God. You got to have some faith in God and get excited about all the good things in your life. Look for the positive things. I challenge you to do what I'm doing with my kids every single day. Tell me one good thing that happened today. And I ask it just like that. And all of a sudden, they'll start telling me, oh, yes. And literally, sometimes it's the simplest thing, like, oh, yeah, they were serving, Jackson, they were serving pasta marinara at school. Like, the small stuff that literally made his day. And he's able to find happiness in that. And he's smiling just talking about the pasta marinara sauce that just happened this week. And I think it's as cute as can be, but it's a whole lot better than, kids hearing you talk about all the stressful things that are happening in your job or in politics, or this happened, or you saw this on Facebook, or this is in the news. And get it out of your life. Don't let it suck up all the great things that are happening around you and all the great things that God is doing in your life. Hope this helps. And remember, be like Dan the man too is the other final message. If you met Daniel, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, just envision, a 36-year-old guy. He still looks young. I still call him a kid because he's my younger brother. But that just constantly smiling and literally just happy to be alive. Does he have bad days? Of course, we all do. But man, this guy is just happy to be alive. He wants to meet as many people as he can while he's on this earth. And he is just grateful that he gets to wake up with breath, that he gets to wake up with the ability to go impact someone, and that he has the ability that someone's going to help pull him out of bed, that he can get in that wheelchair and start doing things. Man, if we could all just have a similar attitude, this world would be a better place. So love you guys. If you have any questions or thoughts or want prayers or clarification on any of this stuff, hit me up. Joe@saltstrong.com. Joe@saltstrong.com is my email, and I will talk to you on the next episode.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul, it was past